Okay, good question. I'm not from Baltimore, so when I came to UMBC and moved into Baltimore, I had a lot to learn. And one of the things that I learned is that where I live on the west side of Baltimore, I live in a neighborhood that's mixed, but more white than black. But just east of me, every single block is almost entirely black. So that can make you wonder, can it? A few years ago, in 1969, did you have Martin Luther King birthday day off?
Yes.
And he was assassinated in 1968, and indeed there were very substantial riots following his death, his assassination. So that's the Baltimore I came into a year later. Okay, well, I'm thinking about three things as I can kind of recall them as we talk. One is I was very careful in the book, or tried to be careful not to say it was caused by blockbusting. I'd say it was triggered and made more accelerated by blockbusting. So I think had blockbusting not occurred, there might have been a somewhat different pattern. It might have had the same result, but blockbusting tended to explode neighborhoods immediately, very quickly. So it was a tactic, and that was the real estate. Those who did this kind of real estate business, and they often were not the mainstream real estate people. The main real estate people didn't care about these parts of the city. They were out making money in Pikesville or Catonsville. But the people who engaged in this kind of blockbusting were people who saw that they could make a quick buck, and they could make it by panicking people. So a second thing I would say is that this happened during a period when there was suburban growth. So many people, without regard to the racial issue, had lived in older urban neighborhoods, and they might aspire to live in newer suburban neighborhoods, and that's kind of the American way, right? Now, it turns out that those suburban neighborhoods were available to whites and weren't available to blacks. Well, again, it wasn't any more intensified than Boston and Chicago and Cleveland and some of St. Louis, some places where it happened. But I think in the case of Baltimore, there was, in fact, a sizable black population that had grown during World War II, especially if you go before that. But in fact, it was quite historic, but there were lots of newcomers. A lot of people came to Baltimore during the war, because the black and white, to work in war industries. So when the war was over, people got back to sort of normal. You had a tremendous desire for new housing, and that was a suburban movement. And suburbanization was almost entirely a white affair. Now, if you were black and lived in, again on Pennsylvania Avenue, and the neighborhood was going downhill, you might also like to move to the suburbs, but you couldn't. So if you couldn't move to the suburbs, where might you move? Well, you might move to maybe the next neighborhood out that was just a little nicer. And if blockbusting activity were happening there, it might in fact make it possible for you to do that. So I think, it's not a black and white, good and bad, totally situation to understand that blockbusting, for all of its negatives, did make housing available to people who had been denied it. Many black people were willing to do that, and as I point out in the book, one of the drawbacks for them was that although they got a better house, and for them what they felt was a better neighborhood, they paid more for it, because these blockbusters were buying low. The panic whites would be willing finally to settle for something way below what their house really was worth. And then the blockbuster would charge new black residents much more than it was worth. So, they were getting better housing, they were getting what they considered a better neighborhood, but they were paying a lot more for it. Well, I have an emotional connection to the topic. I grew up in Virginia in an era of segregation, which I very much opposed. So it's been important for me to try to understand how various forms of racial discrimination have operated over time, to try to figure them out.